Well, Etienne, news flow galore on the local market today. Perhaps we start with Royal Bafokeng announcing that they're not going to be listing on the JSE. And then, of course, we had that simultaneous cautionary announcement out of Impala Platinum. Could you possibly put one and one together to make two?
I was hoping I'd get three. I mean, seriously, if you look at the synergies that the two would have, added to which Bafokeng already a major shareholder within Impala Plats, it was their first major equity stake that they got way back when Impala was still trading $55 a share. So the two properties are adjacent to each other and will make massive amounts of economic and business sense for them to just break down the neighbour's wall and continue mining right through.
So you think this will come to fruition?
Look, I can't comment firmly, but I mean, there's a very strong possibility, and it makes a big amount of business and strategic sense for all parties concerned, rather than going through the exercise of a whole new listing. And
we're having our own finger trouble. What happened on MTN? We saw volumes today sitting at about 27 billion rand, and apparently finger trouble on an MTN deal.
Yes, big volume going through an MTN. Definitely a finger trouble. We got confirmation as much from the JSE, but someone having a fat finger there and doing a miss on about 11 billion rands worth of MTN shares. It's not something you want to see happening every single day. There was a reversal going through, but it does skew the volume on the JSE a bit today, so not quite sure what the real number is.
Lots of potential merger and acquisition activity.
Absolutely,
speaking to Keith McLaughlin just a moment ago, we were touching on the small caps, and
yes.
WG Wern being one under cautionary. We've also got UCS, a big cautionary out of that retail-orientated software group. Thoughts on either of those cautionaries? Are they relevant in your life, firstly?
Absolutely. I mean, Wern came to the market with big bang, listed at, I think, about R1 in the listings boom, went up to 5 or 6 rand, and went on a major acquisition spree. I think they got the timing a bit wrong and have suffered as a result. And now the stock's trading at about 20 cents. I think it ramped up to about 29 on the back of this news. It makes a lot of sense for them to maybe be talking to someone, consolidate the position, get off the board. And because keep in mind, they've got some very strategic quarries that a big player might actually be able to leverage off. And they've got some very nice infrastructure with nice new kit that they bought in at the height of the market. UCS, very interesting software business, very acquisitive group. I think in the past 9 years they've done something like 8 acquisitions. So these guys are always on the hunt. It's a very entrepreneurial business, young and aggressive management team, and very focused on software within the retail space. So typically Hi-Fi Corporation being clients of theirs, we'll go to the till point and they'll be able to do the software and the management systems thereof. I would assume following their recent balance sheet restructuring, that management time's probably quite focused on acquisitive growth, expanding the business, not just consolidating.
Pioneer Foods also out with a cautionary big trend here today, and the company says that it's in discussions with various parties which may have a material effect on the share price. Obviously, at this stage, all you can do is speculate.
Yes.
And they have warned shareholders that they're still in talks with the Competition Commission over that fine for colluding in fixing bread prices.
The Competition Commission issue is quite a big bugbear, and I think it's a massive sword hanging over the life of specifically Pioneer. You'll speak to industry players and they'll say, well, no, Pioneer definitely did collude. And then you speak to management of Pioneer and they'll say, there's definitely no collusion. So sort of, who do you believe? I think that story remains to be seen. Who they could be talking to is a whole different kettle of fish altogether. Could potentially be a Zeda with their, I don't know if you know Zeda, there are quite a few co-op stakes that Zeda Investments have on their balance sheet, and it'll be quite an elegant exit for Zeda to realize some NAV, because most of these co-ops trade at fairly big discount, and they're ramping it up into a Pioneer. Keep in mind, Pioneer came into existence following a cooperation agreement between the old-fashioned grain co-ops. And that's where we got Bukomo and Sasco from originally. So Pioneer's roots may be coming full circle in that it might actually be acquiring the co-ops that it actually created it in the first place.
Etienne, I'm going to keep you till the end of the show and talk to you now about the international data flow that we've seen today.
Yes.
We've seen the ISM number out of New York, better than expected. First time we've seen business activity picking up in 4 months in that territory. We had jobless claims dropping 16,000 to 453,000. That was better than the market was expecting, moving in the right direction on the jobs front.
Yes.
And then we had that GDP revised upwards to 1.7% for the second quarter in the US from prior 1.6% expectations. So positive news flow out there. Now I'm going to take pains to highlight what we're seeing out of Europe, because very mixed data, and I explained it to Peter Attard-Montalto earlier today. We've got in the Eurozone 2 big Spanish banks, or 2 big Irish banks being bailed out. So Ireland in trouble from a banking perspective, and then Spain being downgraded by Moody's. We had markets very buoyant a short while ago, and now a reversal. Do you think that the Eurozone woes are now outdoing the positive flow out of the US?
Bronwyn, I definitely think that's the case. We are really, really struggling to find traction in this market. We're seeing the VIX at a record all-time low. Now, that's usually an indication of volatility, is an indication of market activity. And for it to be at that level just shows you players do not know where this market's going. At the minute you have that sort of uncertainty, especially with all indices globally having run as hard as we have. I mean, JSE all shares sitting 29,400 odd points, the Dow, S&P, all of them have broken through into very strong uptrends. I think market's looking tired, and we really need a catalyst of some spectacularly good news to push it higher. And I think investors are erring on the side of caution, and definitely, as you correctly point out, you're seeing just a hint of bad news and the selling coming out.
And we're closing out. This is the last trading day of the third quarter. We've had a very buoyant third quarter for emerging markets, with markets rallying around about 17%, I see, in aggregate on the emerging market front. Could we be in for more upside on the emerging market front?
Bronwyn, couldn't really comment on global emerging markets, but South Africa is definitely the flavour of the month. I mean, we're seeing HSBC once again reaffirming their caution with a view taking out Nedbank, and the Walmart transaction. All these things. South Africa has virtually an unblemished track record throughout this credit crunch. We haven't lost a bank, we haven't lost a top 100 corporate throughout this recession, and we still have ammunition to play with in the shape of monetary policy potentially easing some more, and I think that could potentially be a catalyst driving the JSE higher.
What about those poor portfolio managers who are underweight equities at this time? They've been waiting for a pullback and an opportunity to deploy cash reserves that they may have accumulated. Is there going to be a panic to get in at these levels?
You know, if you want to panic, be the first to panic. So for those guys that are still out there sitting in cash, it may be too late. We could potentially see a bit of a pullback, but like I said, I think a catalyst would be some further corporate action or monetary easing. And if we see that, then I think the dice have been rolled and it's cast.
Truworths is at the top of the top 40 again. It's up 3% today, and obviously the positive momentum, or the positive sentiment rather, out of the potential Massmart Walmart transaction is boosting retailers. There was a point where we were all saying, can retailers go any higher in South Africa?
You know, it's actually bending my mind a bit to pay 23 times historic multiples for a retailer. But then you look at something like the Brazilian retailers, and those guys are sitting on 35 historics. Walmart.
Well, that appears to be the argument from foreigners, that on a comparative basis,
Correct.
Our retailers are inexpensive,
Yes.
compared to other emerging market retailers.
I mean, Walmart's paying 20 times forward. But I think to them, it's not just a commercial transaction. I think it's a very strategic acquisition, buying out Massmart. But without a shadow of a doubt, South African retailers are so in play, it's not even funny. Disappointing results from Pick n Pay, though, coming out yesterday with
A trading update, wasn't it?
sorry, a trading update, but still disappointing. They're looking at softening in results.
Profits down, expected to be down 25%, if I'm correct.
Once again, South Africans burning their finger in Australia. I think this is a bit of a trend we need to watch.
And we've got problems because they announced that they wanted to, Franklin's was going through with a sale, and now the competition authorities in Australia are putting a question over whether that transaction will actually happen.
Yes. So I get really, really itchy if South African corporates venture into Aussie.